next step is to check out a new branch called feature forward, not feature. We'll name it GitHub username / lock door intent. The first step in test-driven development is to create a new test. So we'll add a new test file and call it lock door intent tests.js. We'll copy our launch tests and then paste those inside of our new JS file. We can update our description to make it lock door intent, and then we can update our it statement to also describe our test case that we're about to write a little bit better. This first test case is going to just lock the door, so we want to confirm that the door is locked. This is going to replicate a customer saying, launch smart lock or tell smart lock to lock. We could also say launch smart lock and tell it to lock, or any other combination of using the invocation with the action of lock door. This time, instead of using rb.launch, we want to trigger a specific intent called lock door intent. I'll copy the response variables to make the lock door intent response. After a customer locks the door, I don't expect Alexa to wait for another response from the customer. When a customer locks the door, I expect that to be the end of the conversation. So we actually don't need a reprompt because I don't expect the customer to respond at all. So I'll delete that variable. And then I want to update the test case. Instead of expecting is ask, we expect is tell, because the difference between a tell and an ask is when Alexa asks, she waits for a response from the customer. If it's a tell, Alexa does not wait for a response from the customer. Now that I've got that first test case written, I want to create a second one. And in this second test case, instead of just testing the new intent in isolation, I want it to test the flow of a customer or a homeowner launching the Alexa skill, launching smart lock. And once smart lock tells them, welcomes them to the app, customer responds by saying, lock my front door. I want to start this one off by saying responsebuilder.launch. That's going to send a request to launch the application. Once the application is launched, then I'm going to want to send a lock door intent request. I'll do that by having another return statement inside of my then block. So I want to switch out this first response expectation, the first check, to an is ask with launch response and launch reprompt. I want to change the second return statement to an rb.intent with lock door intent. And then that one should be the is tell with lock door intent response. Let's run these tests, and because we're doing test-driven development, these should fail. That's what we expect right now. Let's see what happens. Two of our tests pass and 4 of our tests fail. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Now that our test cases fail, I'm going to update the documentation a little bit more around the code to make it more readable in the logs. Once we do that, we can go back to our app.js and add only enough code to get our test to pass. I'll do that by changing the name of the intent inside of first state, removing the variable name from the function, and then changing isAsk to tell with the response from our test case. So I'll paste that response in, save that. Now I think we have enough code to actually pass all of our test cases. Let's see. We'll relaunch our Jovo server, go back to our test cases, and see that everything passes, all six of our test cases. Now that those pass, we need to update our language model so that way the front end of our application can actually expect that. We'll paste the name of the intent and then change some of these responses to expect the lock door intent. We'll include any phrase we think the customer or homeowner is going to say when they want to lock their door, like lock, or lock the door, or lock my front door. Anything you can think of. The more phrases you give Alexa, the better she's able to expand the phrases to using machine learning to account for anything that the user says, the customer says, so that way she's always on, all the customers are understood. We'll rebuild our language models by running Jovo build. And now let's head back over to Dialogflow. Oh, real quick, before we do that, we'll relaunch our test cases to see the responses inside our debugger, just to make sure that everything's running as we expect. Relaunch the server, run npm test, and see that we see the confirmation that your door is locked. Once we've confirmed all of that works and we've run it locally, we can re-update our Lambda function with the new code. Delete the old zip file, select all the files, and compress into a new zip file called AWS Lambda. Go back to your Lambda, scroll down and click Upload, and then upload that new zip file that we just created. Save it, test it, put it in a stew, make sure that our response looks good, head back to Dialogflow, and we need to rebuild by importing from zip. Head back into Platforms, and then inside of Google Action, inside of Dialogflow, delete that zip, select all the files, create a new zip, and once that's done, drag and drop the zip file, type import in all caps, and then click Update or Import. Then we can click Done and see that now we have our locked door intent. Locked door intent with all of the phrases we expected. Now that we've got Google Actions working and updated with our locked door intent, we'll head over to Alexa and go back to the JSON editor. Inside of the Alexa skills, inside of models, drag and drop, save and build. And we can see that it's already added the locked door intent. Build the model. There's all of our sample utterances saved. And once it's done building, we can head back to test. We'll launch the app. And once we've launched the app, we'll tell it to lock the door. And we get a confirmation that our door's locked. Perfect. We've now got our new app. Everything's working, at least up and through the locking the door. We know everything we need to know in order to add on unlocking the door, to add on new locks, to check the status of all of the doors. Moving on from here, we can even make specific doors like lock back door, lock front door, lock garage door, lock window. We'll focus on door. But opportunities are endless with voice. When you're laying in bed and you want to lock your doors, or when you're halfway across the country and you want to make sure that everything's locked, why not use your voice to ask? Rather than having to log on to an app or a website, just turn to your local Google device or Alexa device and ask. Thanks for joining us with another lesson from Voice First.